But look, let's move on to the Maryland Terrapins. We got to talk about it because we didn't expect that game against Oregon versus Idaho for be 20 as close as it was. And likewise, I didn't expect Maryland to drop 50 on UConn, man. So Nate, talk to us about this game, man. No more Talia, no more some of these NFL wide receivers. You still got Hemby, but you got a new quarterback. What do you think, man?
I'm not. I'm 50 points. I was surprised. I thought they'd at least like slowed it down by at least the fourth quarter. I mean, I Billy Edwards, I knew coming into the season was going to be the starter. Because coming into the season, everyone was like, well, you got MJ Morris from the transfer portal, and I think he did everything right in the practices. My biggest concern was our offensive line. I mean, we had 5 new players. Kyle Long is the only one that's coming back, and then we got a redshirt senior from Purdue. He was our center. I think it's Kautenberger. So, yeah, I mean, it was practically 5 new. Like, if you look at it, 5 new players. But I mean, for both sides of the ball, I mean, we did what was expected. But it was against a UConn team that's led by Jim Mora. They're not the best at really anything.
No, except for college basketball.
That's about it. Cam Edwards was the only one that really came back last year because he was a redshirted last year, if I remember correctly. Their defense was okay-ish. I think they were like ranked somewhere like top 100 last year in rushing yards, but I mean, they had turnover at pretty much their quarterback and receiver. I thought their red zone defense, that was one of my biggest things, and there was a couple of times where we were in the red zone and then they had no answers. So one game is not enough for me to say, yeah, we're going to make some damage in the Big Ten. Because, I mean, it's UConn. I like to see how they look against Virginia. How they look against Michigan State. I want to see how they look against those teams. Can you put up 50 points against those guys? And then, especially we get to the Ohio States, the USCs, painfully. That's what I want to see. Continuity.
Well, you get the Big Ten right away, right? You get Michigan State next, don't you?
Yes.
Okay.
Michigan State's next.
So coming into that,
the next.
Oh, well, no, I mean, actually, no. Virginia put up 34, I think, on Richmond, but it's Richmond too. We'll see how they go. But let's go to that Michigan State game. I mean, they jumped out to a 16-0 lead against Florida FIU? Was it?
Yes.
And then
FAU,
but then they came back in that game. So I mean, they're also, we talk about new teams. They got new coach, new quarterback, new situation. I mean that's going to be a good test because both your defenses are looking nice right now. What do you think going into this game with Billy Edwards and your rushing game?
My biggest concern starts the offensive line. Honestly, if I had to give them a grade, based on how they looked against UConn, I'm being nice. I'm going to grade right now on a curve, a B-. I mean, for the most part, I thought that they like it's expected they're going to have ups and downs like the first 4 games. I say by like week 4, we should see everything, the cobwebs, everything together. But I mean, in that game also too, I should have pointed this out. All 3 quarterbacks, MJ Morris, Cam Edge, and Billy Edwards, they all played. They only did give up 1 sack. So, but I mean, that was downfield coverage that was pretty exceptionally well. And then he just didn't do well in that pocket on that play. But so when it comes to the run blocking for me and pass protection, especially with Hemby, like there was a couple times like Hemby and the rest of the group had to create holes themselves, and I think that has to be something you got to work on. You got to create holes for your running back, and if you're not doing that against a defense like Michigan State, it's going to be a long game. Defensively, the same thing. Our front 4 needs some work. Um, I mean, sure they gave up. They were less than 100, but right around 100 yards they gave up in the first half. But physically, you're going to get worn out, especially when you're playing the Michigan States, the Michigans, and other Big Ten opponents. We didn't record a sack against UConn. I can't defend that. You're going to have to be effective at stopping the run and rushing the passer, and I don't know. It's going to be something. Those are my two on both sides of the ball I'm looking at, but everybody else did well. Preston Howard, I thought was fine. I do expect him to kind of be not like the focal point of the offense, but I do expect him to get touches on the ball more. Wide receivers outside of Ty Felton, I mean, they're pretty much. I think it's just more of a plug and play. Like UConn, I expect Michigan State to do this. They took out Caden Prather out the game they double teamed him and they rotated coverages on him. So he still found ways to make plays. The biggest concern I have is, especially if you take Caden out the game and Preston out the game, that kind of number 2, number 3, so like that's another question. Like the UConn game did not really show me who their number 3, especially number 3, number 2 wide receivers are at the moment. So there's still questions, but my biggest two focuses on the offensive and defensive line.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and it's just 1 week. Obviously, it's always it's funny that Dr. Pepper always they have that new commercial about the hype train, how people are jumping on there, and then all of a sudden, beep, wait, you never know how quickly you can get off that. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But this is definitely something I didn't expect, and I'm glad we did see.